Generally, when you think about the Jewish people, patient is probably not the first word that comes to your mind, right? Famously, Moses was a little bit late, and the Israelites turned to, building an idol, worshiping a golden calf. We're not known for our patience. And yet the truth is, I think, as a people, we really do know how to wait. We've waited a long time for so much. We've waited for centuries, for millennia, for safety, for peace. We've waited for a world to see us not as scapegoats, not as the source of their problems, not as strangers, but just as fellow human beings. We've waited, and we've waited. At the Seder, we remind ourselves about how we're waiting for such a world. We do it with the cup we pour for Elijah. We pour a cup, and we put it down on the table, and we wait for redemption, for Elijah to come with the Messiah, to bring us a better world. And year after year, we open the door and we sing Eliyahu HaNavi, and year after year, we keep waiting as that cup sits there on the table, left. I want to talk a little bit more about what that cup means, what it symbolizes. If you turn back, you don't have to, but if you turn back to the book of Exodus, Shemot, chapter 6, you find these verses that talk about God's promise to the Israelites of redemption. And it's because of those verses that we have the 4 cups of wine. They correspond to the 4 promises found. I will bring you out, I will deliver you, I will redeem you, I will take you. But then the next sentence, the next pasuk, adds a 5th promise. I will bring you into the land. A promise that wasn't immediately fulfilled like the other 4 at the moment of Exodus, the moment of Yetzirat Mitzrayim. And so the rabbis argue, another thing that as a people we're known for. They argue and they disagree with each other about should there be 4 cups or 5 cups. And eventually that argument's never really resolved, and that's where the cup of Elijah comes from. A 5th cup that represents this 5th promise, a promise that hasn't yet been fulfilled. And there's this idea the rabbis have that when Elijah comes, he'll answer all of the machloket, all of the questions, all of the debates in the Talmud that were left unresolved. Elijah will answer for us and tell us, should it just be 4 or 5? How many cups should we have? And so in the meantime, there's different customs when it comes to that 5th cup, the cup of Elijah. Rabbi Tarfon says we should do the Hallel over it. Rambam says we should pour it, but we shouldn't drink it. The Shulchan Aruch says it's okay to drink if you're still really thirsty, which is hard to believe after the last 4 cups. And most of us just pour it and let it sit, because we're still waiting for redemption. We're still waiting for that world to be complete, a world that's yet to be. And that cup then is a symbol of hope deferred, of what's to come, of what we for thousands of years have been patiently waiting for. Rabbi Harold Schulweis of blessed memory, I never got to meet him personally, but he was a rabbi in Los Angeles, and his writings have been a big inspiration to me throughout my life. And he writes in one of his books how he used to do a custom that he got from a Hasidic rabbi, Rabbi Naftali of Ropshitz. And at their Seder, Elijah's cup wasn't just poured simply from the bottle, but Rabbi Schulweis would pass a cup around the table and ask everyone at the Seder to pour a little bit of their own wine into that cup. The symbolism is powerful. As each person poured their own wine into it, they contributed, adults or children, everybody. The reminder was that no individual alone can fulfill the promise of redemption. But redemption comes when each and every one of us participate. When each and every one of us do our part is how we get there. It doesn't come from waiting. It comes from an action. The Talmud says this clearly, Ein Yisrael nigalin ele b'maasim tovim. Israel is not redeemed except through its own good deeds. There's a famous midrash that when the Israelites stood at the sea waiting for it to split, Pharaoh and his army were chasing after them. They cried out to God, and what does God say? Why are you crying out to me, Moses? Tell the people to go forward. The midrash goes on and says that there was one man, Nachshon, who who started to walk into the water. And it was only when the water rose all the way, just till it almost covered him entirely, that the sea split. Salvation doesn't come from magic. It comes from action. It comes from participation. It comes from pouring a bit of ourself into the future. We live in a time that needs redemption. There's war, anti-Semitism, brokenness all around us. Fear. And we should find comfort. We'll ask ourselves tonight and tomorrow, why is this night different? We know the traditional answers, but we also, each and every one of us, know tonight's different. Because it's the second year in a row there are people still not home with their families to celebrate Seders. People still held in captivity in Gaza. We see it locally and around the world, the divisiveness, the anger, the fear and the hatred in our politics, in our society. And so it's easy to look at that cup of Elijah, to wait, to keep waiting patiently as we have for generations, for someone else to come and fix the world's problems. But Rabbi Schulweis asks us to pour a little bit of ourselves into that cup, to participate in the act of helping it to fill, helping it to overflow, to bring light where there is darkness, to bring freedom where there is bondage, to find meaning instead of emptiness. It's a call then not of being patient, but a reminder, a symbol. But symbols only work when we act based on them. But it wants us to ask ourselves, what will we pour into the world this year? What will we bring to fulfill that promise of redemption? So this Passover, I invite you, if you'd like, to try a new tradition at your own Seder. To take that fifth cup and rather than filling it up from the bottle, to pass it around your table. To let each person put a little bit in. To let each person at the Seder fill it up, participate. I invite you to even take it a step further. As you pour a little bit in, ask each person what it is that they're committing to this year. What are they going to do to help bring about redemption? Maybe adding a little kindness, maybe volunteering a little more, maybe standing up and speaking out a little bit more. Maybe just trying to hold on a little more to hope. It's a powerful symbol, that fifth cup. But symbols only matter when we live them. So the question is, why is Elijah's cup still full at the end of our Seder? The answer is because it's waiting for each of us to pour a bit of ourselves into that vision. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach.